Thank you for joining our webinar today. We've decided to talk about two areas of security that are probably under discussed, even though they may be two of the top most important areas of security. It's time for us to have a discussion on this. I don't think we actually haven't done a webinar on it for maybe a year or two. So we thought this would be a great time to do an update. I am Tom Ruffalo, CISA at eSecurity Solutions. Chad Haskell, Senior Solution Architect at Barracuda, will also be doing the bulk of the heavy lifting today and talk about Barracuda's point of view on both of these topics. I'm going to do a quick overview to talk about email security and BDR just to set the stage. And I wanted to start by just asking some questions. I think these are questions that companies should be asking themselves about email security. First one is it still important? One would hope that people think it is, but we're going to talk about that. Why is it still important? What should I expect from email security? Everybody up to date on what email security should be providing, and are you getting what you need? What priority should I be giving to email security? Don't I already have strong email security? This is a big misconception by many people and many companies, in that we have Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace. Don't we already have everything we need? Aren't we secure enough? Do we even know what we have? That's the question. How much email security is enough? You don't often ask that. Companies don't usually run two endpoint securities, but it certainly is possible to provide redundant security in the area of email security, and we'll be asking and answering the question of whether you want to do that. And which companies are most vulnerable to email security attacks? First thing, what is email security important? Well, one would hope so, right? It's the number one threat vector is email security. I'm sure people wish we didn't have to have it, but since we do, it opens the door to all kinds of attacks, which we know. So is the number one, email security is the number one threat vector. Number two, all companies are being attacked. And we already know attackers use automated attack kits so that you can go buy them off the internet, and that enables criminals to attack. And if you're enabling it with attack kits, which can be automated, you can attack any size company, which is the reason we saw ransomware become so prevalent many, many years ago, was because these attack kits were enabling companies to do attacks. So what should you be expecting in your email security? There's a very long list, and unless you're reminding yourself of what you expect from email security, you can see here there's a very, very long list of things that you should be getting. Each and every one of those, A, should be available, and B, should be set up and tuned properly so that you get what you need. And user awareness and training is a newer element that's being added to email security. But let's not lose track of the fact that we want end user ease of use, we want administrator ease of use, and we need a very long list of detection and prevention type solutions. So the next question would be, well, so if I get Microsoft 365, don't I already have what I need? Well, so even if you got everything that's in Microsoft 365 in the, say, E5 subscription, not everybody has E5, not everybody, and if you don't, you can see all the areas where you don't have even Microsoft's full email security solution. Google's the same thing. Should know what you got and whether that's an adequate. And by the way, overlapping email security is a good practice. The nice thing about email security is it's not completely real time. If something shows up 30 seconds later, you're probably not going to notice the difference, but maybe you just saved your company from being attacked if you've got two different email security solutions running, especially if you're using something like Microsoft at the core. So then, answers to those original questions: is it important? More than ever. What should I expect? You should expect broad protection. It's at least a top 3 priority for security, even though you're so used to seeing it, you probably don't think much about it anymore. Don't I already have email security, strong email security? Maybe, but maybe it's not enough, and maybe you don't even get you don't even have what you thought you were getting. Layers are important of email security, so overlapping securities is a good idea. We use a couple here at eSecurity. And everybody's vulnerable, especially because we're enabling attacks with automated attack kits. Okay, moving on to backup disaster recovery, setting the stage for that. What level of BDR have you adopted? What problems need to be solved by your BDR solution? What risk are you exposed to by not having the appropriate BDR? And what key BDR features are must-have features? This is an area, I think, especially area where there's a lot of different companies that have a lot of different types of solutions. Certain companies try to save money. And when you try to save money, you don't necessarily, you may save money, but then when you've been attacked, can you restore everything properly and quickly? Have you lost anything? Are you, ransomware is a key issue that people have to protect against. Less than 50% of small, medium-sized businesses have adopted strong BDR. What problems are we trying to solve? Clearly, ransomware is a big one. Continuity, you want to make sure your company is always running. Disaster recovery, we have a disaster, we need to be able to recover quickly. Data loss prevention, so protecting and controlling the data that is exposed. And compliance, regulation compliance, of course, requires strong solutions. These are a list of the types of essential features that a good BDR solution should offer. You can see there's a long list, and these are all areas that companies should be thinking about and making sure that you have available to you. So just as a quick overview, one slide, I just want to reinforce what eSecurity Solutions is here for. We're here to help companies provide complete security solutions to our customers, including GRC services such as risk assessments, risk management, compliance, anything that is a governance risk or compliance service. We provide all of those to help you get compliant or to assess your risk, and also to be able to respond to attacks. Security products, such as partners like Barracuda, one of our key partners, has been for almost 20 years. And then management, detection, response, and managed security is our third leg. So it's basically everything that customers need. We want to be a one-stop partner for everyone. We want to help companies with whatever your security goal is, whether it be compliance, strong security, or just basic security. We want to be there to help you define what those solutions are, assess your risk, define the right solutions, define the priorities, so that you can define a security roadmap, and then we'll help you get there. These are partners that we work with, and there are more, but these are some of the ones that we work with most frequently. And with that, I want to turn it over to Chad.
But the thing that we really want to talk about, that I really want to talk about, is fortifying what used to be the #1 threat vector. If you look at the Verizon breach report for, I don't know, like the last 15 years, the reality is that, every year the Verizon breach report would come out. Email was #1, email was #1. It's only been recently that web applications have actually eclipsed email as far as for the number one threat vector. But even though it's not the #1 threat vector, it is one that you should absolutely pay attention to. And just like with all security, even with data protection, it's always best to have it in layers. And so what I want to do is I want to kind of talk about, how those layers work, how we're able to bring those to bear, and the overall result that you're going to get from that. So as we start to kind of look, this is just a little bit about Barracuda protect not only people, but data, as well as apps, networks. And we do this for more than 200,000 organizations worldwide, providing these cloud-first security solutions that are easy to buy, easy to deploy, and easy to use. That's Barracuda's thing, right? It always has been. We started off in 2002 with email filtering, and the way that we were able to gain the ground that we were able to gain as quick as we were able to gain it was the fact that we came out with a product that was very disruptive. Again, it was a low price point, and it was easy to deploy, and it was easy to use. Whereas all the rest of the solutions out there were very cumbersome. We were competing with the Iron Ports of the world and whatnot, and there was a lot of per user pricing, and there was complex configurations, and that was really where we were able to grab the ground that we were able to grab. As we look at how Barracuda's kind of evolved, right? Now we've gone beyond just that email protection. Now we're actually protecting your data, whether it's 365 data, so talking about Exchange Online, OneDrive for Business, Teams, SharePoint Online. Most recently, we brought in the ability to protect your intra ID or Entra ID, however you pronounce it, but it's what used to be Azure AD. So we're able to protect those cloud workloads, as well as the ability to protect those on-prem servers. The folks that weren't using Google, they weren't using Microsoft, maybe those folks have an on-prem Exchange server. The reality is we can back up that on-prem Exchange server, or if you have an on-prem SQL server, on-prem file server, all of those things, we've got a solution for that, right? So whether your workloads are on-prem or whether you move those things into the cloud, we've got a mechanism by which to protect those. Other thing that I really want to call out and stress is the fact that we're able to protect your networks. Really, really good stuff. Just know that while I'm going to largely talk about email today, Barracuda is absolutely not siloed or limited to just protecting an email. So as we start to jump into email, it's important to understand how the attacks have evolved. We all remember spam, and we remember you couldn't just look at the text, but you had to bring in OCR because the bad guys, instead of having text in the email, they would have images in the email, and then you started to see people start to apply malware. And then you started to get into the polymorphic malware and all the zero-day stuff, data exfiltration, URL phishing, scamming. So scamming, this is the Nigerian prince. I've got all this money, and if you'll just give me a little bit, I'll make you whole on the back end. Spear phishing. Spear phishing is really interesting because you went from people just sending out all these mass mailings, right, to these very targeted attacks. You think about mass mailings, it's almost like, dragging a net through the ocean. Whereas spear phishing, that's somebody that is targeting an individual, a very specific instance, and they have a very specific weapon that is designed to just attack that one thing. And so whenever we start to look at the spear phishing, we'll talk about kind of how that works. But the reality is these are very difficult to detect using traditional mechanisms. Traditional mechanisms, you look at the volume, you look at signatures, you look at attachments, you look at malicious links. But if there's an email that comes to you that just says, "Hey, are you at your desk?" There's not a mail server, or there's not a mail filtering solution around that's going to pass good mail, but is going to block that, "Hey, are you at your desk?" Right? Because there's no malicious link, there's no malicious attachment, there was only one of them. None of the traditional hallmarks are there. And again, that's why you need that layer. When we start to look at domain impersonation, brand impersonation, a lot of times what you'll see people, that are pretending to be Microsoft, they're pretending to be USPS, they're pretending to be FedEx, whatever the case may be, right? You start to see these brands be impersonated. And then blackmail. Blackmail is huge, right? I've been recording your webcam for blah, blah, blah amount of time. Pay me in crypto, lest I release the footage. You start to see business email compromise. This is huge, right? And so this is where, MFA, a lot of people go, "Oh, well, you know what, as long as you have MFA, you're good." Well, that's not true, right? Because there's all kinds of ways around MFA, right? The number one is just MFA fatigue. If I send enough requests, at some point in time, you're just going to hit the button and go, yeah, I approve, go away. I live in Las Vegas. My fiance works for MGM, and she was working there whenever they had their breach. They had multi-factor authentication in place, but the reality is the help desk people, they were sufficiently helpful, and they were not sufficiently suspicious that they helped a bad actor to reset their MFA, and that's how they got in. That's how they compromised Okta and were able to move and do all kinds of terrible things. Conversation hijacking. So conversation hijacking is super difficult to detect, right? And what the bad guys do is, through business email compromise, they'll get in and they'll start watching email. And then whenever it comes down to it, they'll start looking to see what they can monetize. And let's say you just had a project done. Maybe you had your parking lot repaved, or maybe you gave the paving company earnest money up front. and they see that email correspondence where you paid them, 10% up front. Now the paving's done, and so now the paving company says, hey, we want that other 90%. Well, what the bad guys will do is they'll spin up a domain that is, instead of Acme Paving, it's Acme's Paving or whatever, and they'll come in and they copy and paste the previous thread, and they're like, okay, now you can make payment. You can make payment here, and so then the bad guys run away with the lion's share of the payment. This is super difficult to detect. Lateral phishing is another one, and where lateral phishing is so difficult is, when you think about traditional email security, it sits at the gateway. So it's seeing messages that are going from the outside in or from the inside out, right? That's what it's seeing. But lateral phishing, because it happens within the actual tenant itself, the 365 tenant, the Google Workspace tenant, or even within the Exchange server, the reality is that correspondence never traverses the gateway. So the reality is that no matter how good your gateway is, it's never going to see that. It's never going to even have an opportunity to block that. And then, of course, when we talk about business email compromise, we're also talking about account takeover. And once you've compromised an account, then you're able to do all kinds of things. This is what we see, what we know about. We already know that people are starting to take these. They're taking these machine learning libraries, these natural language libraries, and they're able to feed it correspondence, and so then they're able to actually, talk like other folks. It used to be that whenever you would see these emails, because of the poor grammar and the misspellings and things of that nature, you could figure out, okay, this isn't a native English speaker. This is a bad guy coming from a place of ill repute. And so the reality is that you were able to kind of pick up on those things very quickly. But again, as we're starting to see with people leveraging this machine learning, these attacks are much more complex, much more difficult to detect. Why does phishing happen, right? And the reason is the fact that because it works, because of the fact that it's easy. And then the other piece is because humans are actually the weak link, because, robots don't get tired. Robots, they don't fatigue like people do. They given good programming, they don't make mistakes. And so this is this little graphic that I found, and I thought that it was really good, because the reality is that Barracuda has spent the last 23 years improving our machines to be really good at detecting spam. And then the other piece is that whenever you're dealing with people, people generally want to do the right thing. People generally want to help out. And so if I craft my attack in a way that I put in some sort of an emotional component, and then I put in a ticking clock, then that person immediately, they're going to be sympathetic. And then because there's a ticking clock, they're going to be thinking about how they can accomplish this thing in the time frame that I've given, and they're not necessarily going to be thinking about should they do the thing, right? How easy is it to get phished? Well, let's look at it. Let's go fishing. I wanted to know, who are the players at eSecurity? Who are they? Well, it's not hard to find. I did a quick Google search. This is the LinkedIn page that popped up. And I'm able to see, people in the organization. I see it right there. Boom, Tom's the president. So president, CEO, right? Who processes invoices? Who's the most likely to send me information? Start to go through here, and I can kind of start to put together, the players, and I can figure out how they interact. And then, well, how difficult is it for me? Well, for me, and this, the picture that you see there, that's my buddy Ty. My point is that, I can go out and I can create a Google account, and I can be whoever I want, right? And so, I can go through, I can create my persona, I can start to send those messages. And the reality is, again, that gateway, it's looking for all the traditional hallmarks. It's looking for the volumetric attacks. It's looking for the malicious links. It's looking for the malicious attachments. And because my email doesn't contain any of that, my email goes right through, right? everything checks out, right? It's coming from Gmail. That's a legitimate domain. As much as we would, as admins, we would all love to be able to block Gmail and Yahoo and all these other free email accounts. The reality is we can't. Gmail is a legitimate domain. It's not blacklisted. It's innocent. Text only email. There's no malicious attachments. Email looks okay. Boom, gets forwarded through to Exchange, and then now into your mailbox. And then this is an actual, example, right? Where somebody actually was compromised. Whenever we start to look at our traditional email security, the things that it's looking for it's just not enough, right? Is it necessary? Absolutely. That there's a lot of folks on this call, I'm sure, that have some sort of like a video doorbell, like a Ring camera or something like that. It's on their front door. And that's fantastic. It gives you more information. It lets you know more about what's going on, but it doesn't mean that you don't still need to lock your deadbolt, right? Still need to do that, is that it's just not enough. And so whenever we start to look at the social engineering component, now I'm able to completely bypass all that traditional email filtering. This is the way that your traditional filtering looks at email. And so my point is we need to do greater inspection. And I love this analysis here, right? This is your traditional spam filtering versus inbox level security. And again, this is where we talk about the layers. You have your gateway, but you also need inbox defense as well. You see that there are different things that become obvious, but only with those additional layers of inspection. There's a lot of misconceptions whenever it comes to some of our traditional means by which to filter. SPF protects my domain from impersonation. You have your sender policy framework, but the thing of it is that if you're not actually able to look and see where it's coming from, all it is that it's coming from a legitimate place. It's not necessarily saying that the legitimate place that it's coming from is the place that you think it's coming from. DKIM will help with sender authentication. Not everybody's signing these things. Not everybody's got these things configured properly. And the other piece is that even if I'm a bad guy, that doesn't mean that I can't configure SPF and DKIM properly. I absolutely can. All I have to do is, being the bad guy, is make you think that I'm the guy that you're expecting. The bad guys are able to use the mechanisms that we have historically relied on. They're able to use those things to actually exploit the situation. This is an example. So when we start to talk about inbox defense, a lot of people go, oh, you know what? My gateway's doing fine. I don't need anything. Well, this is actually the result of a scan that we offer. It's a free scan. What that scan does is it'll actually look at the last 12 months worth of email in your 365 tenant, because what this does, this runs against 365. But in this case, again, this is a college, and there were 4,000 threats, and you see that the threats are trending up. And then you see the types of threats, right? There was phishing, there was scamming, impersonation, extortion. Thank goodness there was no conversation hijacking. But you also look and see that DMARC, right? So DMARC, it was in reporting mode for 4 domains. It was only in enforcement mode for 1 domain, which may not be the worst thing, right? Maybe those other 4 domains are test domains or something like that for this particular college. But the thing of it is a lot of people, if you actually go into MX Toolbox or something like that, you look at their domain, they only have, number one, most folks don't have DMARC set up at all. But even the small percentage of folks that do have DMARC set up, it's only in reporting mode. It's not in enforcement mode. And the reason that it's in reporting mode is because the reports that it generates in free tools is just, fills up an XML document. Most folks can't read that. And so they don't have the confidence to be able to put it into enforcement mode because they're not able to get the data out of it that they need. And that's definitely something that that we can help. Is these are showing the types of messages that are coming through. Obviously, this is somebody making their change on their direct deposit. But what I want you guys to see here is this is something that, one, that got through, right? But what I want you to see here is this solution, this inbox defense that Barracuda offers. It's giving this analysis, right? So it grabbed this message and it threw it in the junk folder. And here's why, right? Is one, because this machine learning is actually saying, hey, this email makes an unusual request of the recipient, and notice that the reply to address is not Terry Murphy's typical address. Obviously, Terry Murphy, would be, normally, sending from a .edu, and so of course the reply to would be, you would expect it to be this .edu, but in this case it's not. It's just Gmail, and so that's why this got flagged. But my point is this made it through their gateway defense, and it was Barracuda's inbox defense that was picking this up and providing that protection. We use these machine learning modules to go through and to figure out who the people are, where they are, who they talk to, how they talk to them, right? All of these things. And so the reality is that we're able to create this profile, this behavioral profile. And whenever we see a departure from that profile, that's when we raise the flag. Whenever we see that departure, then we go, yep, you know what? Now we're calling shenanigans, and we're saying that we're not going to allow this. Talked about a layered approach, right? You still need the gateway, but the gateway is not enough. You need inbox defense because, again, whenever we're talking about these more sophisticated attacks, whether people are using machine learning to be able to launch these attacks or not, the reality is that you need something like that to be able to thwart those attacks. So defense in layers is the only way that you have a chance of being able to block those more sophisticated attacks. The next thing is we start to kind of move beyond that. In these layers, we have our gateway, we have our inbox defense. We're able to block the malware, using sandboxing at the gateway. We're able to, block the malicious URLs. We're able to, spot the conversation hijacking, the extortion, the phishing, the impersonation, all of those things, right? You put all these things to protect your brand. You're doing it to protect your finances. You're doing it to protect your data. People still accidentally delete things, right? You guys know yourself that your users are almost as dangerous, and in some cases more dangerous than any bad actors. Users delete things. Users hit save when they want to hit save as. There's a lot of things that happen. You need to ask yourself, if you are leveraging Microsoft 365, how are you backing that up? And I know a lot of people go, oh, well, Microsoft, they've got its mutable storage and these different availability zones and all these other things. And yes, you're right. Microsoft has amazing ability, amazing resilience, but read your terms and conditions, your terms of service. Microsoft tells you, yes, we will make sure that your SMTP server is up and available, and we will do it to this level. However, the email that's in there, that's your responsibility to protect. If something happens, yes, we will get that SMTP service back up. Whatever's in there, whenever we get it back up, is in there, and that's it. Talking about SharePoint or OneDrive, file sharing. Making those files available. Yes, that folder and folder sharing service and file sharing service, is that Microsoft's responsibility to keep up and available? Yeah, it is. The data that resides in there, that data, it's your responsibility, right? This is that shared responsibility model that everybody talks about. There it is right there, and I've highlighted it in yellow for you. I recommend that you regularly back up your content and you leverage a third party to be able to do that. That's what Microsoft tells you. And then you go, okay, so what if I don't? Well, so if you just want to roll the dice and figure, well, it'll be okay, but for how long? So even if nothing happens, that stuff goes away at different intervals. And this is, again, determined, like Tom was talking about earlier, are you on E5, right? Because if you're not, then there's different terms. Barracuda, along with, having additional levels of protection for your email, we're providing an additional, layer of protection for your data that's in 365. So we do that with the Barracuda Cloud Backup. And this is a little bit about what we back up, right? We back up Exchange Online, OneDrive, SharePoint Online, Teams, Groups. Most recently, we've added the ability to back up your Entra ID or Intra ID, and providing that additional level of protection. One more thing that we do is, so while we're backing all this data up, we also scan it for malware upon restore. So if you want to restore something, we're providing scanning to actually scan those files to make sure that Maybe if you backed it up, right? Maybe you backed it up before the definition came out or before it was known bad, or it looked good on the system, right? The system, we didn't know that it was a bad thing. Backed it up. Maybe we found out it was a bad thing later on. Maybe even a bad thing happened with it. Now you have that in your backup. What Barracuda is able to do is we're able to actually scan that on restore to ensure that we don't actually restore bad content. Barracuda solutions were easy to buy, easy to deploy, and easy to use. This is literally it. This is the deployment for cloud-to-cloud backup. You sign in to your cloud-to-cloud backup account. You connect it to Microsoft. As soon as you say connect to Microsoft, it says, hey, put in your credentials. You put in your username. It pops you over to Microsoft to authenticate. You hit accept, and then obviously these are all the conditions you're accepting. All the rights that we're asking for, and that's it. From there, the Barracuda cloud-to-cloud backup will actually go through, and it will create a schedule to back up all of your applications, and it will create a forever retention policy. This is a little comparison, right? Capabilities of Barracuda's cloud-to-cloud backup, in addition to your 365 capabilities. So the next thing that I want to show you is I just want to show you the fact that you have different options, right? If you're just looking for email security, we're able to leverage amazing email security. Again, there's the gateway, there's the inbox, and then there's also automatic remediation. So should something get through, we actually give you the ability to go through, pull it from everybody's mailbox, and if messages went outside the organization, we have the ability to alert those folks. If you want more than that, you say, hey, I want security, plus I want data protection. Fantastic. You can go with our premium product, right? If you say, hey, you know what, I want security, I want data backup, but I also, for compliance, I need to be able to archive my email. I need to be able to do e-discovery of that archived email. Boom, you can pop up to our premium plus bundle. And you say, oh, well, can I mix and match? Yeah, absolutely. You absolutely can. This is our email threat scan, and this is the one I showed you, that college in the Carolinas. If you want, you can go to scan.barracudanetworks.com. You can actually kick the scan off right now, but it's a free tool, and what it's going to do is it's just going to show you what is in your 365 environment today. We're not storing any of the data. We're not doing anything like that. We're just going to literally scan, show you what's there, and then we dump the data. Whoever requests the scan is the people that'll be able to see the scan. So if Tom goes in and Tom kicks off the scan, then he'll get an email with this report. There's a web version. There's also a PDF version if you want to share it around your organization. But my point is it's a very good tool, and it'll show you. One, it'll validate. If you go, oh, you know what, I've got, whatever, I've got Proofpoint, I got Barracuda, I got Microsoft, whatever you have, that's fantastic. All this is going to do is validate that what you think you have, that you truly do have, right?
I want to make a few comments. Number one, so it looks like today we only got through the email pieces. I really wanted to cover BDR as well, and Barracuda has a very robust backup disaster recovery set of solutions for data and systems. It probably deserves its own hour, and maybe we should do a separate webinar on that. And what I would say is that, we're here, and we will follow up with you to see, where you have interest, and we can have a dedicated one-on-one discussion about email or backup disaster recovery or any of the other areas eSecurity provides, including risk assessments, GRC solutions, managed security, or any other security product or solution you need. So, but we can, we're definitely willing and able and interested in following up on that and having dedicated solution discussions with you to make sure that you're getting what you need. It was clear that some people did have multiple email security solutions. Many were using Microsoft 365. I would recommend that anybody using Microsoft 365 also consider adding another solution as an overlay. Barracuda obviously is a great alternative, and I'm sure that if Chad took you through all of the algorithms specifically that they use, it would be scary to see what they have to do. From my point of view, I can relate to what he was saying. So there's all these basic things they used to do, and then you look at DKIMs and SP SPMs, and all kinds of different things like that, right? To determine logically, does this, is this a threat? But then reality is today, there's all these soft attacks, right? There's people that are impersonating, making impersonations, CEO fraud. These are things that just come across in the way, in the words that are being communicated and what they're saying to you and how you react. And so the email security solution has to be and is way more sophisticated than it used to be. And you cannot be, if you're using something that is only looking at using those old techniques, you're going to get attacked for sure, and you're not going to catch it. And I've seen personally the types of attacks that are being caught these days by the right email security solutions. And it makes me feel a lot better knowing that they're catching the things that if I'm not paying attention and I'm in a big hurry, it's going to catch it even though I won't. So we want to make sure you have the right solutions for your company. And so that's our promise to you, is that we will make sure that you get what you need. We do have other webinars coming this year on Zero Trust and SASE type solutions. So we're very focused this year on making sure our customers are solving problems having to do with your assets moving into the cloud. And so we will be devoting a fair amount of effort to that as well. So you'll be invited to those as a follow-up. Thanks very much. We look forward to talking to you soon.